to our crafty home. And Jules and myself, Lorraine, and we're here today just to talk basically about our primary years and how life was so different back when we were younger. And as you may already gathered, we're 70 years young and enjoying our retirement and doing various hobbies and enjoying gardening around the house. So, Jules?
Yeah, so welcome. We're happy to have you, and it's kind of a nice thing to sort of share, um, since we're a community of friends and that, and we hear many people talk about their lives and that. So we've decided to just do the whipping chaps. We're not going to go live. When we go live, we'll go visit people because there's lots of lives in our community, in the diamond painting community. So we like to go and visit those lives and see what everybody's up to. But as far as these, the whip and chats, we can show you. This is a first for us. We haven't really done a canvas together, have we?
No, not really.
So this is one of the things that we'll do later on. Is maybe when we have. I just thought of one came to mind, Josephine Wall.
Oh, that's
You
huge.
know, that's where I think definitely two of us could be working on that monster.
For sure.
So the other thing too is that we're downstairs. We'll also have a program where we'll sort of show where our working spaces are and where we store stuff, and you know there'll be lots of opportunity to talk about our different projects and everything. But right now where we are, there's a small desk on the side, and then there's this big table here, and it's well lit. And but we're downstairs, and often, especially in winter, we're probably going to pop up to upstairs. And usually, I go on the dining room table, and Lorraine picks the kitchen. She has a big work area um, in there, so we're going to sort of vary that depending on what it's like, because nobody wants to be in the basement that long. So we're going to talk about the primary years. So Lorraine, do you want to start with how you saw your primary years?
Well, maybe I should go back to square one. And that was we were both born in a general hospital, and Jules was born on July the 20th, and I was on the 24th. And back in those days, the mother would stay in the hospital for five days. So, anyways, Jules later on in years commented to me, I knew I had seen you somewhere before. And so, anyways, we used to laugh about that. And he said, I recognized your body. And I thought, oh, brother. So, anyways, uh, I was the youngest of three children, and we lived very close to the downtown area of the city, but it was still residential back then. Lots of houses down the street, many families. We knew all the children on the block, and we used to do all sorts of things together, like kick the can, hide and seek, and go swimming because there was a public pool two blocks down from our house. So there was a lot of things that we did, and we were very creative in the things that we did do. And so I'll let Jules tell a bit about his childhood.
Yeah, so I'm a little bit different because I was the oldest of the five children. So we had just moved in an area to help my dad. My dad worked at a fertilizer plant in Fort Saskatchewan. It was called Sherritt, and he needed quick access to the Fort Road. So we moved in a developing area in North Edmonton. North Edmonton, I always say we had everything over there as far as plants. Um, the stockyards, we had meat processing plants, a whole bunch of them. We even had a horse plant, sadly to say. They exported, from what I heard, a lot of horse products to Europe, surprisingly. And So we had the soap plant. I just remember so many things. Down the street, there was, so by when we moved there, I was 6 years old. So I was just entering grade one, and I was going to be going to a school just down the street called St. Francis School. And only stayed there 1 year, but um, it was fun because there was so many different things there. Like Lorraine and I were both recalling, when was we actually saw um, horse-drawn carriage setups for these milk deliveries. Do you remember click clop, click clop down the
Coming
street?
down the street, yeah.
We both remembered that, and it looked like it went 1961. We moved over there about 1960, so I got a little taste of that, what that was. But it's just funny because it's like a different era, and then you're moving into this other era.
And us kids used to get so excited to see the horse-drawn carriage with delivering milk and that because we used to grab sugar cubes and run outside and feed the horse and be all excited, pet it, and it was really, really interesting and fun.
Yeah, so we had quite different life that way. But one thing we did have in common, Lorraine always told me, I love bike riding. I'd go out, hop on my bike and go riding all over. I said, well, I'm sure we would have met that way if we lived together close by because we were bike riders too. Loved bike riding all over the place. So that was a common thing that we had as well.
One thing I wanted to mention that comes to mind is when I was a child, I was maybe about 5 at the time, and I had watched this movie, and it all that was in my head was all this money that these guys had taken from a bank, and it was a comedy. And I got this brainwave idea, gee, maybe I can make some money and go to the store and buy all the candy I want. So I went across the street, went to my favorite best friend, Lilibet. Her name actually was Elizabeth, but I called her Lilibet. And we spent a good portion of the day making counterfeit money, cutting paper strips and drawing stick people on there. And so, anyways, we landed up, we went to Joe's Corner Store a couple blocks away from our houses. And we asked Joe if we could have mixed up candy. And we presented him with these fake bills. And I'm sure he had a good laugh over that, but kept his seriousness. And he said, well, just a moment. And I just have to go to the back for a moment. And he knew my father well. So he phoned my dad. And next thing you know, my dad showed up at the corner store. He was livid. And so, anyways, he put us in his green station wagon, took us home. I landed up with no supper and I had to go to bed very early. So that's what I mean by the creativity. We did things and really had an enjoyable time, even though the ramifications weren't that great.
See, and I guess too bad we weren't together because I had a little more wisdom than that. I saw these Monopoly dollars and I really wanted them. And they were in a little corner store. So I really was pretty happy when my aunt offered work. And her kids would do flyers in the neighborhood. So I was being paid at a very young age to do flyers. And we'd deliver the flyers. And I remember the money was like 1 to 2 cents a flyer. This is crazy, eh? But money went a long way. I was able to buy some of my models, which were only 98 cents. The Aurora Monster models, those were cheap back then. And Monopoly money was there. And I loved fake money too. I just went a little further. I didn't make it myself. I had some other companies who did it. And then if I brought those in, well, that'd be a different story then. But that's a funny story Lorraine talks about there. So she's quite adventuresome, and it sort of relates to what her family is because her family was very entrepreneurial, including your dad, right?
Yeah, like My dad started off in the heating business, so he basically was putting in furnaces for various homes. And then after that, he decided that he was going to go into saw sharpening. So in the evenings, he was being trained by an elderly man. And so he would be trained for that. And it took quite a bit of time. I mean, saw sharpening back then was so laborious, really. So, anyways, then from there, he was working during the daytime at Eaton's, which was a department store. And of course, he was in the plumbing area of that store. And so from there, he was able to give up his job at Eaton's, and go full time with his business. So, and that business survived for over 40 something years. Later on in years, my brother took it over when my father had passed away, and my mom and him were working at precision grinding. So, yeah.
So for me, some of the big things that I remember, there was also a big chicken coop where they took care of chickens and that, and I could see why, because with all the processing plants around, you needed chicken products too. So that was just down our street. I mean, we had everything down there. Plus, we had a spooky house, a big house. We'd always talk about the big spooky. It was all wooden house, multi-stories, and we all say somebody living in there, and it was always the topic of conversation was the spooky house. So I guess that's why I am working on a spooky street. That's one of the what we're working on right now. Is this guy, and he's called Spooky Street, and we're working on that one for Drills and Chills, which is a fun event, and September, October, and so that anyway, there was all kinds of interesting stuff, interesting reasons to go riding your bike and checking out these houses and stuff like that. It was fun. We did a lot of that. And so, yeah, the bikes, we really had that in common a lot, is going out and these little adventures on bikes. The other thing that I did too is in grade two, my parents moved me to Sacred Heart School. And Sacred Heart School was more towards the Italian side. It was a kind of a cool area because there was lots of people there in different cultures, but mostly Italian French cultures. Because across the street, the Sacred Heart School was there, and then there was a Sacred Heart Church, and across from it was a French church. They're both Roman Catholic churches. So that's where I went from grade two to grade six. So we're talking primary years here, and it was fun. And the only thing that I didn't like was the buses, but got used to that after a while. It was be two buses you'd have to take, and so here you are, grade two, little kid. Luckily, there were some cousins too that were going, so you had somebody to keep you company on the bus. So we would go from grade two to six. I would do that bus aspect, two buses to get to there. And lo and behold, actually, funny is Lorraine later on went into the Academy Assumption, which was just across the street from where Sacred Heart was.
And I was going to say that was from grade two to grade 11. And we kind of laugh about it because it's almost like we were stalking each other without knowing each other, because our lives were just so intertwined without us even knowing each other in the younger years.
So, like grade two to six, it's kind of funny because there was this corner store and they had all these cards, and it was always fun. Everybody wanted cards back then, right?
Like of the Beatles and David
Beatles
Clark
was
Five
big,
and
big, big at that, and Batman,
yeah.
the old Batman cards, etc. Those cards were all at this store, and so I always wonder, did I see Lorraine there in that store? Because I was always snooping around the store with the change when I got paid.
And likewise myself, because my girlfriends and I used to go into that store quite frequently, and we loved looking at the Beetle cards and purchasing them. And so, yeah, maybe we did see each other.
One of the goofy things I remember is, anybody who's gone through the Catholic Church knows that you light up candles, and that maybe we don't practice that now, but they would go and light a candle and pay a certain amount of money. Well, these candles were in these big glass jars, and they were all colored. There was like green and gold and blue, and I was fascinated by that because what would happen is the church. So this is where my school was, grade school. The church would throw these boxes out. Well, lo and behold, Jules saw these boxes, and I would bring the boxes on the bus and bring them home. Yeah, I just remember that. So I always had a fascination for glass. I always tell Lorraine that's where my fascination started, was these big glass, and they were all carved glass, beautiful. They're large too, and I'd bring them all home.
But you never told the rest of this story.
No, my dad actually wanted to make something special with them, so he did wiring around the top of the jar, and and then he where the lights were at Christmas, he hung this there. But all you needed was one really bad wind to bang those around, and you know what happens there, right? So good old Jules got dad into some problems there. So that never happened ever again there, the glass and stuff. But that was just a funny moment. One key time for both Lorraine and I was when we were in grade three. And it was grade three in the schoolyard where I heard about JFK. So that's a very, for little kids, I didn't even know who JFK was. But you knew by the end of the day, you knew because you went home to the parents and they were very sad. And the story was coming forward, and so you learned who this guy was. And of course, at the time we were practicing Catholic, so a Catholic president, that was a big thing. Him and Jackie. So I was in the schoolyard when I heard this. JFK's dead. John F. Kennedy, and I was just a kid. I didn't know any better until I got home, and I got the whole story. So Lorraine, what
I
about you?
was a little bit different that way. I really liked John F. Kennedy, so I knew who he was. And my brother had actually cut a picture out of the Edmonton Journal. It was a small picture, black and white, of course, of John F. Kennedy, and he put in a little gold frame for me. So that was a little bit different. And in my mind, at that age, I thought, I'm going to marry him one day. So, anyways, when I found out about this, we were playing in the gym at our school, and it was announced over the speaker in regards to him passing away. And I remember, like, the kids were just shocked, and I was absolutely stunned by it. And taking the bus and heading home, I was just really overwhelmed and got into the house, and my parents were just as sad as can be. And that's one day that will always be ingrained in my mind as well as in Jules's mind. It was a tough time.
Yeah, and for young kids too, hearing about assassinations
Yeah.
and that was nothing, it was bothersome. And we may have crossed paths. We figure we may have because we would have gone to that little store at the same time, whatever. But that was a fun time, and both of us loving bike riding. I loved playing in the backyard by myself. Um, most of the time with either my dinky toys and making little towns and stuff. And so I liked recreating small stuff, little towns and things. And then also over on the side, there had to be war because we were only, we were born over 10 years after World War II ended. That's not that, it's a decade. And so there was still a lot of war movies, lots of war. reenactments and movies and stuff like that, and tons of toy soldiers and stuff. As a matter of fact, one of the Christmases, my dad got me this whole set with tank and jeep and all the different paraphernalia and stuff. So I loved doing that as well. So it was like war, then going over to the peaceful place where the cars were and the houses, and playing with that. And of course, the kids would always go out and play sports in the back as well. So that was sort of us. We had a little backyard park where we were able to go baseball, football, whatever. So Lorraine, how about you?
Yeah, uh, for me, usually it was like in the summertime, and my girlfriend Lilibet and I would always set up like a Kool-Aid stand. And we had quite a bit of clientele. And the reason is that there was a public pool, which was 2 blocks away from our house. So a lot of the kids would walk down our street and to go to the swimming pool. So of course we had our Kool-Aid stand sitting out there, and boy, I'm telling you, we certainly did bring in a bit of money there, even though we were selling, I think it was something like 5 cents a cup or something like that. But one of the best flavors that the kids loved was the root beer Kool Aid. So that was just one of the things. Another thing was we would spend a lot of our time at the pool, and because I had a pass, and my girlfriend Elizabeth as well. And so there was one day, like we have to go back in those days. My parents, of course, had suffered through the depression years, and so of course, when my mother would buy me clothes, it would be like 2 times the size of who I was. And one of the things she did is she bought me a swimsuit, which was really too big for me. But anyways, I was so thrilled to have this new bathing suit, and so we headed to the pool, Lilibet and I, and we spent our afternoon there. And on the way back, there was how there was hopscotches that were drawn in chalk on the sidewalk. So as I was going down the street, I'm doing my hopscotch and towel around my neck and just having fun. And all of a sudden, my mother is just a waving to me, and I thought she was glad to see me. So, anyways, I'm waving back at her, and she kept waving like mad. So by the time I reached into her hands, she shooed me into the house. She said, "Look at you. You don't have your bathing suit. You're naked." And I looked down, and oh my good grief. So, anyways, my parents had to send my brother to the pool so that he could go into the pool and look for my bathing suit. So, to this day, I'm telling you, my family laughs at that.
Yeah, we do laugh at that. She felt natural, so
Yeah, I was
natural and happy.
à la naturelle.
And happy, eh? Just a happy kid. So very happy-go-lucky years, I think, growing up. Um, Not a care in the world, just doing all kinds of fun stuff. And I just remember that too. It's everything was an adventure, and you'll hear many in our time period say the same thing. The baby boomer era is we've just let the kids go, let them go out. Don't see them till supper time. We would go and do our adventures all over the place, and I think that was the fun part. And just like doing lots of sports and stuff. And I know that in the early years too, I worked to develop a nice hockey rink in the back. And my brothers, by the way, I didn't talk about my brothers. Lorraine did talk about hers, but I was the oldest, but I also had two other brothers. Okay, so one came after me, then my sister, and then another brother, and then another sister. So it was spread out quite a bit. So, like a lot of the stuff we did, they just sort of follow along, especially the boys' stuff, the boys. um, they'd follow along. And Lorraine never talked about her other love is her dolls.
Yes, I absolutely amazed. I had a little girlfriend who would come and visit her grandmother, Mrs. Robinson, who lived right next door to us. And it so happened her name was Hazel, and she came to see me. And we went into the backyard, and she showed me a Barbie doll. Well, I'm telling you, I absolutely fell in love with this doll. And her and I played with it and, would dress her up and undress her. And that was our afternoon. And then after that, I was, Mom, I have to have a Barbie doll. I just have to. And so I was privileged enough that I was able to get my Barbie doll. And after that, it became like a whole ton of Barbie dolls and so on and so forth. So that's what I was introduced to. And to this day, I still love seeing Barbie. And it's because of all the classic dresses. It's beautiful.
Yeah, and for me, it's the same thing. One of these days, I'll show you Lorraine's some of the Barbie
Collection.
collection, and then for me, it's just soldiers and stuff. But it's weird. I'll have an episode about looking back in our historical, because a couple of years ago we really started looking into our backgrounds and trying to find out our ancestors and everything. We have some great stories that we discovered about that. It's a fun discovery thing to do it. We're both French Canadian background, both emigrating, all our families emigrating from Quebec, and we have some really, really amazing stories of our families, which we'll bring up in one of the future whipping chats. Even though we didn't do any whipping,
Yeah.
we'll
But we're
just,
French. We talk with our hands.
yeah, we'll kind of show you, where we're at here. So, Lorraine, could you hold that side of the canvas here?
Okay.
Like we've worked on the bottom of this spooky street. You could see the whole bottom here. Isn't that cool? And then look at the look at the moon, the reflection and everything on the moon. I thought it was cool. Of course, the kids can't wait to see those. They can vision us running around collecting stuff. And this is a great canvas. I really love this one. So that's what we're working on, or I am mostly.
Yes.
Jules is.
Yeah.
Lorraine is working on and that's one of our other videos. We've got that video out there.
Yeah. I'm working on the fall birds.
Yeah, she's in the fall birds, which is really nice. That's very colorful birds. And so that's about it. We said we'd do about 30 minutes, and this is sort of our first whip and chat, and we'll learn as we go along and give you some, but it's more of the personal side for us, and we'll show you that more of a personal side. And we enjoyed doing this one.
Yeah. It was fun recollecting. How's that?
Yeah, that's great. So thanks for joining us, and we really welcome our subscribers, and we just do it for fun here. We just want to build our community, and we've met some great people so far, and we really do enjoy this. So thanks for joining us.
Yes. Thanks so much. And we'll say au revoir.
Au revoir.